Have you ever noticed how certain messages arrive in your life at the exact moment you need them most? A sentence in a book, a stranger's words, or a video like this, finding you not by accident, but by timing. Life has a way of whispering to us when we are standing at the edge, when the weight of silence feels unbearable, when our reflection begins to feel like someone else. And maybe right now, that's exactly where you are, searching for answers you cannot name, longing for clarity you cannot yet hold. This isn't coincidence, it's not chance. It's your soul finally calling out for you to stop running from yourself. We spend so much of our lives chasing the noise of the world, validation, recognition, belonging. But in moments like this, when you are still, when the outside world feels distant, something within you begins to speak, a quiet reminder. You have not been forgotten. You are exactly where you are meant to be, even in the confusion, even in the ache. This message found you because you were ready to hear it, and the truth is simple, but heavy. What you are looking for has always been within you. We grow up surrounded by invisible rules that teach us how to measure our value. From the first moment we step into the world, voices begin shaping us. Parents, teachers, peers, the media. They whisper and sometimes shout about what it means to be worthy. Grades, beauty, money, success. Over time, these voices become so loud that we forget to listen to our own. We begin to live as reflections, chasing standards set by people who are just as lost as we are. And so begins the cycle of seeking approval, of needing someone else to confirm that we matter. The conflict is not that we want love or recognition. That's natural. It's that we let it define us entirely. Without applause, without validation, without likes or recognition, many of us feel invisible, as if we don't exist at all. Yet that emptiness isn't a lack of worth. It's the echo of neglecting the self. A reminder that you've handed your identity over to a world that never truly knew you. Society tells us strength looks like dominance, confidence, and achievement. But beneath the surface, so many people who appear powerful are haunted by insecurity. Think of the leader who cannot sleep without validation from their followers, the celebrity who feels like a prisoner to their own image, or the worker who measures every ounce of self-worth against promotions and paychecks. They may appear successful, but inside they're fragile, because their sense of self hangs on external threads that can snap at any moment. The truth is that dependency on external validation creates a fragile kind of power, one that looks impressive but collapses the moment approval fades. Philosophers like Machiavelli spoke of control and strategy, yet even in those cold calculations there was an understanding. Power built on the perception of others is unstable because perceptions change. What endures is self-mastery, the ability to stand unshaken whether praised or criticized, whether noticed or ignored. Without that foundation, we remain trapped in the cycle of performing for others while silently starving ourselves. We confuse attention for love and possessions for freedom, but the human heart knows the difference. Attention fades the moment someone more interesting arrives. Possessions can be taken, lost, or replaced. Yet many still chase these illusions, believing they'll finally feel complete once they're seen, once they're envied, once they've proven themselves. The tragedy is that those who achieve these things often feel emptier than before, because the illusion dissolves. It's why so many who seem to have everything admit, behind closed doors, that they feel hollow. The applause fades, the luxury becomes normal, the attention turns shallow. And when that curtain drops, they face the same quiet self they've always avoided. The conflict is that we keep searching outward for something that only inward reflection can provide. We keep expecting the world to hand us the peace that only self-acceptance creates. And until we face that truth, we continue running in circles, mistaking the cheers of the crowd for the voice of our soul. Our culture reinforces this cycle because it thrives on our insecurity. Advertising depends on it, politics manipulates it, and social media amplifies it. Every scroll, every comparison, every metric of likes and shares is designed to remind us that we're not enough yet. But maybe if we try harder, buy more, work longer, we'll get closer. And so people wake up every day already feeling behind, chasing a finish line that keeps moving. This constant comparison leaves little room for authenticity. Instead of asking, what makes me feel alive, we ask, what will make them notice me? The tragedy is that the more we strive to be noticed, the less we truly exist. We become curated versions of ourselves, polished for consumption, hiding the raw, imperfect truth that might actually set us free. In this way, the world convinces us that masks are safer than faces, and roles are safer than authenticity. But deep down, no matter how convincing the mask, the real self still aches to be known. What complicates this even further is that people often reward the very behaviors that destroy us. When you sacrifice your health for work, they call you dedicated. When you give away all your boundaries in the name of love, they call you selfless. When you suppress your voice to fit in, they call you agreeable. Yet each time we play these roles, a part of us withers. And the deeper we bury our true selves, the harder it becomes to remember who we are beneath it all. This is the heart of the conflict. Society praises the masks, but your soul mourns them. We receive applause for betraying ourselves and silence when we honor who we truly are, and that silence feels so unbearable that many return to the performance, believing it's safer to be celebrated for a lie than ignored for the truth. But the cost is heavy, the quiet erosion of the self, the slow drowning of your authenticity beneath expectation. Even relationships, which should be a refuge, often become stages for performance. Many of us believe love is something we must earn through constant sacrifice, approval, or perfection. We contort ourselves to fit what others desire, believing that if we are enough for them, we will finally be enough for ourselves. But this is another illusion. Love that requires you to abandon yourself is not love at all. It's dependency wrapped in fear. Yet countless people remain in these patterns, terrified that if they stop performing, they will lose everything. What they don't realize is that what they risk losing was never real connection. It was a transaction built on roles. Real love does not ask for masks. It invites you to take them off. Real connection does not demand perfection. It honors your imperfections as the most human part of you. Until this truth is faced, people remain trapped in relationships where they are loved for who they pretend to be, never for who they actually are. And so the conflict expands. We live in a world that rewards our performance but ignores our essence, a world that tells us to collect approval as though it were oxygen while suffocating the very soul we were born with. To chase validation is to stand on shifting sand, always waiting for the next wave of approval to hold us up. To depend on recognition is to live in exile from our own truth, because the moment we are unseen, we collapse. And yet the irony is that the world's recognition was never designed to sustain us. It was designed to control us. The only power that endures, the only strength that cannot be taken, is the kind born from within. But most of us are too afraid to look inward, because in that silence, we are forced to confront the self we've ignored for years. That silence feels heavy, but it's the doorway back to freedom. Until we step through it, we remain prisoners of an endless performance, applauded by many, but abandoned by ourselves. There are nights you lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations that ended years ago, as if rewriting the memory could change its outcome. You remember the moment someone dismissed you with a look, the silence after you shared a piece of your heart, the sting of being invisible in a room full of people who claim to know you. These memories don't fade as quickly as we wish. They attach themselves to our identity, whispering that we are not enough, that we must try harder. The human experience is filled with these small wounds, often unseen by others but carved deeply into us. You might not have spoken about them, but you carry them everywhere, into your friendships, your work, your relationships. And sometimes, without realizing it, you live as if you are constantly on trial, hoping the next achievement, the next relationship, or the next opportunity will finally redeem you in your own eyes. But redemption never arrives that way, because the very idea that you need to earn worthiness is the lie keeping you awake in the first place. We've all known the hollow feeling of giving everything to someone who could not see us. Maybe it was love, maybe friendship, maybe family. But the pattern is the same. You poured yourself out, hoping to be recognized, only to discover that some people are incapable of receiving the depth you offer. And what hurts most is not their inability to value you, but the way you begin to question yourself as a result. Instead of realizing their limitation, you convince yourself that you were too much, too little, too needy, too distant. And in that spiral, you adjust, quieting your voice, shrinking your presence, smoothing your edges, thinking this will finally make you acceptable, yet each adjustment costs you something real, something irreplaceable. One day you wake up and realize you've been negotiating pieces of yourself away just to hold on to people who were never truly holding you in return. That realization is devastating, but it is also the beginning of awakening. There's a universal moment, a turning point, when the performance collapses. It usually comes during solitude, when the distractions fade and there is nowhere left to hide from the truth. You begin to see how much of your life has been shaped not by your desires but by your fears. Fear of being alone, fear of being rejected, fear of not being enough. The job you chased was less about passion and more about proving yourself. The relationship you clung to was less about love and more about not wanting to be abandoned. The habits you developed, even the way you speak or present yourself, were all shaped by the silent demand to be accepted. This realization is painful because it forces you to admit that you've betrayed yourself for the illusion of safety, and yet that pain holds within it a strange kind of clarity. The clarity that pretending has not spared you from loneliness, and pleasing has not spared you from rejection. In truth, some of the most defining moments in life are born from rejection. Think back to the doors that closed, the people who left, the opportunities that disappeared. At first it felt like loss, like failure, like something had been taken from you. But with time you begin to see it differently. The friend who walked away revealed the truth of loyalty. The love that ended freed you from a role that was suffocating your spirit. The opportunity denied became the very space in which you discovered a path more aligned with who you really are. These turning points rarely feel like blessings at the time, but hindsight often reveals their purpose. Rejection can be painful, but it is also a form of redirection. A harsh but necessary reminder that not every path was meant for you. The lesson is that your worth cannot be determined by who accepts or rejects you, because either way you remain the same soul with the same inherent value. Loneliness is another experience many try to avoid at all costs, but it is often where transformation truly begins. When the crowd disperses, when the applause fades, when the distractions lose their power, you are left in silence with yourself. At first, it feels unbearable, like standing in front of a stranger you do not know how to speak to. But as time passes, loneliness becomes something different, becomes a teacher. It strips away the noise and forces you to listen to what has always been there beneath the surface. Your own voice, your own desires, your own truth. Many avoid this confrontation their entire lives, filling the void with noise and constant activity. But those who endure it, who sit with the discomfort, eventually discover that solitude is not emptiness, it is clarity. It is the space in which you stop pretending and start remembering. We live in a culture obsessed with hiding scars, yet scars are often the most honest parts of us. Everyone carries them, visible or invisible, emotional or physical. They are the proof that we endured, that life tested us and we did not collapse completely. Some scars still ache when touched. Others have hardened into reminders of strength. But all of them tell a story of survival. And when you share your story, when you dare to let others see your scars instead of covering them, something powerful happens. You connect. Not through perfection, but through authenticity. People recognize their own pain in yours, and for a moment, the illusion of separation dissolves. You realize you were never truly alone in your struggle. You were just silent. This is why scars should not be hidden. They are the bridges that remind us we are human, that we are capable, that we are more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. Perhaps the greatest realization of all comes when you stop asking who do they want me to be, and start asking who am I when no one is watching. It is in that question that the old patterns begin to unravel. You start noticing the difference between choices made from fear and choices made from love. You begin to see that much of your suffering came not from the world rejecting you, but from you rejecting yourself. And in that clarity, the transformation begins. You no longer feel the need to beg for acceptance because you start to accept yourself. You no longer sacrifice authenticity for belonging because you realize belonging built on self-abandonment was never real to begin with. This is the moment life shifts, not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with a quiet decision to stop performing and start living. And from there, every step forward becomes an act of reclamation, of voice, of truth, of self. There is a moment when the noise of the world begins to lose its grip on you. For years, the voices of others dictated your worth, your direction, your choices. They told you who to be, how to act, what to desire. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, those voices grow quieter, not because they stop speaking, but because you stop listening. What once felt like law begins to feel like suggestion, and what once felt like a demand begins to feel like background noise. This is the beginning of awakening, the subtle but undeniable recognition that your life is your own. It doesn't happen in a single dramatic instant, but in small shifts, like a dawn slowly breaking through the darkness. You begin to see that you have always had a voice of your own, buried beneath layers of fear and expectation. And when you hear it clearly, even for a second, it feels like coming home. In that awakening, solitude transforms. Where once it felt like abandonment, now it begins to feel like sanctuary. You realize that silence is not empty, it is full. Full of your thoughts, your questions, your truth. Alone with yourself, you begin to understand that solitude was never the enemy, but the teacher you avoided. It shows you your patterns, your wounds, your longings. It reflects back the scars you tried to hide and the strength you didn't know you carried. And slowly, solitude stops being a punishment and becomes a practice. You learn to sit in stillness without needing to escape. You learn that quiet is not the absence of life, but the space where life whispers its truest secrets. This is where strength begins to grow, not in crowds, not in applause, but in silence that demands honesty. As you continue on this path, scars take on new meaning. Once they were marks of shame, reminders of failure, proof that you had been broken. Now they become sacred. Each scar is a story etched into your being, evidence not of your destruction, but of your survival. You begin to trace them differently, no longer wishing them away, but honoring them for what they represent. Moments you thought you couldn't endure, but did. They are not blemishes, but badges. Proof that you walked through fire and emerged still standing. Strength is not the absence of wounds, but the decision to rise despite them. And when you carry your scars with reverence instead of shame, you no longer fear vulnerability. You recognize that your deepest humanity lies not in being untouchable, but in being resilient. Light, too, shifts its meaning. We often imagine awakening as a sudden burst of clarity, a flood of illumination that changes everything at once. But true awakening is gentler. It is not always blinding brightness. Often it is a faint glow in the darkness, subtle but steady, guiding you forward. It is the kind of light you might miss if you're too busy searching for fireworks. Yet when you notice it, it becomes everything. It shows you that progress is not always loud or obvious, that healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is a quiet moment of forgiveness, a small act of courage, a single breath where you choose peace instead of chaos. These moments accumulate, and together they build a strength more enduring than any sudden burst. Light does not have to overwhelm to transform. It only has to be steady. With awakening comes a shift in the way you see power. No longer does it look like control, conquest, or domination. True power reveals itself as the ability to remain centered regardless of circumstances. It is the strength to stay calm in storms, to hold onto your truth when surrounded by lies, to remain compassionate in a world that rewards cruelty. This kind of power cannot be taken from you because it does not depend on others. It does not rise and fall with their opinions, nor does it crumble in the face of rejection. It lives within you, unshakable. The world may still try to test it, to lure you back into the cycle of performance and validation. But once you have tasted this inner strength, the illusions lose their hold. You no longer chase applause. You carry your own approval. You no longer seek permission. You walk in your own authority. Awakening also reveals the beauty of boundaries. Where once you feared saying no, now you understand it as an act of self-respect. You begin to see that protecting your energy is not selfish but necessary, that guarding your heart is not cruelty but wisdom. Boundaries become the walls that protect the sacred space of your inner life, not barriers that keep love out, but filters that keep toxicity from taking root. And in honoring your own limits, you discover a deeper capacity for love. The kind that is authentic, free, and abundant because it no longer comes from depletion. Your strength allows you to give without losing yourself, to stand firm without hardening, to love without becoming enslaved. This balance, this wholeness is what true freedom feels like. It is the freedom of no longer being at war with yourself. Ultimately, awakening and inner strength are not about becoming invincible, but about becoming unshakably real. You stop running from your darkness because you've learned that light and shadow are both part of you. You stop hiding your scars because you know they are the proof of your resilience. You stop fearing solitude because you've discovered it as the birthplace of your clarity. Strength does not mean never bending. It means bending without breaking, falling without staying down, and carrying wounds without letting them define you. It is a quiet, steady power that grows in the soil of truth. And once you have touched it, once you have lived it, no amount of noise or chaos from the outside world can take it away. This is the kind of strength that endures, the kind that whispers in the silence. You are whole. You are enough. You always have been. If this message has reached you now, it is not by coincidence. It is because some part of you is ready. Ready to hear what perhaps you've been avoiding, ready to see what perhaps you've been denying, ready to return to yourself. The world conditions us to believe that the revolution we seek lies outside, in achievements, in recognition, in relationships, in possessions. But the longer you chase those things, the more you realize they are fleeting. No applause lasts forever. No possession fills the void. No relationship can compensate for the absence of self-acceptance. The deeper truth is that the revolution you need has nothing to do with outward validation and everything to do with awakening within. It is an internal rebellion against the lies that have defined you, a refusal to keep living as a prisoner of expectations. When you understand this, you begin to see that the search was never for something external. It was always for the courage to return home to yourself. The real transformation is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and often unseen by others. It begins when you finally stop waiting for permission to exist, when you stop begging for scraps of validation, when you no longer bend yourself into shapes that betray your essence. It begins in small choices, choosing honesty over performance, solitude over noise, self-respect over approval. These choices may go unnoticed by the world, but they are not meant for the world. They are meant for you. And with each choice, your foundation strengthens. You discover that you are no longer shaken by rejection, no longer destroyed by silence, no longer enslaved by applause. This is the power of inner transformation. It liberates you from dependence, allowing you to stand with unshakable dignity, even when no one is watching. Life, in its wisdom, will continue to test this strength. People will still misunderstand you, dismiss you, or try to pull you back into old patterns. The world will still sell you illusions of worth through status, money, and recognition, but the difference now is that you see through it. You recognize the games without needing to play them. You understand that being unseen by others does not mean you are without value, and being rejected does not mean you are unworthy. Your worth has never been negotiable. It has always been inherent. This recognition does not make you invulnerable to pain, but it does make you resilient. Pain may still come, but it will no longer define you. Instead, it becomes a teacher, a messenger, a reminder of your own depth. In this way, even suffering transforms into wisdom. The call of this moment is not to rise outward, but inward. You do not need to conquer the world. You need to stop being conquered by your own illusions. You do not need the approval of millions. You need the approval of the person in the mirror. And that approval is not earned by becoming perfect, but by becoming authentic, by daring to stand as you are, flawed, scarred, unfinished, and still saying, I am enough. That is the revolution. That is the transformation. It may not make headlines or draw applause, but it will change everything about how you live, how you love, how you walk through the world. And once you experience it, there is no going back. This awakening is not about rejecting the world, but about no longer being defined by it. You can still achieve, still love, still create, still contribute, but now you do so from fullness, not emptiness. You no longer chase success as proof of your worth. Instead, success becomes an expression of your already complete self. You no longer enter relationships out of fear of being alone. You share love because you are already whole. You no longer need to silence your truth to fit in. You walk in alignment, even if it means standing apart. This shift may seem subtle, but it is everything. It is the difference between a life lived in chains and a life lived in freedom, between existing for others and existing as yourself. And once that shift happens, even the ordinary moments of life take on a kind of sacredness. because you are no longer missing from your own story. Because you are no longer missing from your own story. So, as this message comes to its close, take a breath and let the silence hold you. Remember that the real revolution was never about changing the world's opinion of you. It was about changing the way you see yourself. Remember that the strength you seek is already within you, waiting to be claimed. Remember that you are not defined by scars, rejection, or silence, but by the unshakable truth of your being. And most of all, remember this. You are not here to perform, to beg, to chase. You are here to live, to awaken, to return to yourself. Let this be your call to action, not a call to prove, but a call to remember. Not a call to become someone else, but a call to finally be who you are.